Here we are again in chapter 3 of Alexander. You're at Dario, that's a dative. To Darius, you might want to say S, there was a might and tractable Engenium, which is a neuter, so that's why there's an E there. So we had a mild and tractable, or maybe flexible sort of character, Nisi, except that etiam even fortuna, our nominative, corrupts pluriloquy. Generally, fortune corrupts nature. So he had this kind of nature, but fate could change it. Itaque. And so, impatient of the truth, he didn't really have time for hearing this truth, the guest and supplicant, then, at that time, he was sudenting him, he was persuading or using his argument, then with maxima utilia, utilia is usually a adjective, but with most speed or something you might want to say, or with its most effort, he ordered him to be abstrahid, to be dragged off to capital supplicum. Another word like that, supplicant here means punishment. Looks like this cum maxima utilia actually refers to the bloke being driven off, not to Darius anyway. So he, the guy being dragged off, ne quidem, not even tum, then oblitus of his liberty, not even forgetful of freedom, he inquired. He said, I have paratum, I've prepared an altorum, an avenger of my death, mortis mea. But we've got nominative. He himself will seek this punishment of my spurned concilium, of my spurned advice or something, against whom I was persuading you. So the guy who I was just warning you against, he will be my altorum, he will be my revenger. To quidem, you indeed, so suddenly changed by the licenseness of your kingdom, or being a king, eris, you will be a documentum, you'll be an example, posteris, to posterity or in future, that humans, when they permisere themselves, when they commit themselves or something to fortune, when they entrust or give themselves over to fortune, even they discard, they unlearn their nature, because we were dealing with his nature up here earlier. Hey, these things, he was vociferously saying, he was shouting, quibus, to those who had been imperatum, who the order had been given to, so it'd be like a dative. And while he was saying this, they jugulanted him, they cut his jugular, or they killed him. Sarah, dende. So rather late, or later, dende, then, the regret, painentia, subit, went into the regem. The regem's the accusative, so you might want to invert it and say the king underwent some regret, but it literally says regret went into the king. And he confessus, that the man had dixisied the truth, he had said the truth, and he usaded him to be sepulchred, to be put into his sepulchre, or whatever they call it, into a tomb or buried. Part 3 of chapter 3. Thimodes there was this guy called Thimim, who was Aphilius, a son of Mentor. He was an unlazy. Piga is lazy, so in piga means he's not lazy, so he's energetic. He was a juvenus, a young man. Cui, to who had been preceptum, had been ordered by the king, that all foreign soldiers, omnes peregrinos milites, in whom he had plurumum of spe, he had a lot of hope, or he set a lot of store by them, that he should accept them or take over them from this other guy, Fana Baze. So this guy here, the son of this guy, took over command of foreign soldiers from this guy. Eusaurus, he would use their opera, the works of these guys, or the labour and efforts of these guys in the bellow, in the war. Ipsi Fano Bezo, same guy here. So he handed to this same guy Imperium, which is power or control, which before he had dederated, he had given to Memni. Anxious concerning pressing cares, de instantibus means they're pressing or coming in. He was agitapan, it's plural. So even through his sleep, these things were agitating, moving him, or something with anxieties over the species, the appearance of imminent rerums, imminent events, or something like that. Either Civ, the agritude, this would be difficulties or sickness, you might want to think, or a curse usually means summoning or coming close. So as I always say, the coming close of presagiting. This means seeing something advanced from of a divine mind. So we've got two reasons why he's getting these anxieties and these images in his sleep of impending doom or whatever. So either because of he was just having a sick mind sort of thing, or maybe some divine prophecy that he was seeing in a dream. Okay, so agritudo, I've set up here. Affliction or anxiety. Could be melancholy, and the usual thing you think, sickness and disease. But it could be grief, sorrow, and melancholy. It's in the top 10,000 words. Okay, the castra, the camp, Alexandri, of Alexander. Visa sun. It seemed to conlucerate, shine, with a great fulgor, with a great shining or sparkling of fire, ei to him. In Paulo Post, a little after, Alexander, I guess was picking up this visa sun, was still seemed in the dream to be led to he himself in Eovestus habitu, in the same habit or gear or clothing. Remember, I think monks, we still use the word habit, or nuns or something, it's their clothing. So it seemed invested or clothed in the same garment. Alexander was led to him, in which he himself fuesit, had. And then he saw Alexander Vectus carried on a equo, on a horse, through Babylon. And suddenly, cum ipso subductus. So it went away, it was subducted from his eyes, himself, Alexander, I'm guessing, in the horse. Saw Alexander carried through Babylon, and then it disappeared, this image disappeared from him. At Hake. To these things, the Vates, can be soothsayers or something, sometimes it's bards, but I'd say it's soothsayers, with various interpretations. They distracted his care or lured his care away from him with their interpretations. Ally, some were dicabanting, they were saying this was a happy dream, a happy somnium, a dream for the king. Quad, we've got a quad clause, because the camp hostium, the camp of the enemy, was burning or glowing, arsisanting, and that Alexander, or because Alexander had deposited his royal clothing, which would have been in the Greek style, and was now in Persico. It was in Persian dress and their habitu vulgare, their common clothing. He had seen him perductum to himself. So he'd seen Alexander in Persian gear being led to himself. Quidam non. So certain other people were not so convinced, since it augured, or bantored, the illustrious castra of the Macedonians. Visa was seen to portend the fulgorem, this bright shiningness of Alexander, or to Alexander, and that either the regnum of Asia, the kingdom of Asia, he would occupy, or would take, occupaturus, and this was not an ambiguous ray, not an ambiguous matter, since he had been in the same habitu that Darius had been in, when he appellatus est, when he had been called Rex, king. Vetera quoque, old omens, neuter plural. Also, old omens, as ferre solet, is accustomed to happen a lot. These revocerated solicitude. It's more anxieties and worried. So these old omens were recalled to his mind, which were worrying. For he was resensibanting, he was going over again the ground, or rethinking, that Darius, in the principle of his empire, in the beginning of when he was, he had usured, he had ordered to be changed the persicam vaginam. These are the sheaths that swords go into. Aquinas, that would something to do with scimitars. So the the Persian sheaths for their swords were changed into the form which the Greeks used, uterentord. And immediately, Protanus, Chaldean interpreters, that the Persian Empire was going to transit or transfer over to those of whose arms they imitated. And nearly done. Ceterum ipsiat, but himself and the response of the Vatums, of the bards, of the soothsayers, which had been idabato, these had been produced out into the neuter plural, into the vulgus, into the common people. So these are the responses had gotten out in the public, and the appearance, which had been oblated through sleep, which had been offered to him or brought to him in sleep, he was now ad modum, fully latus, he was fully happy, and he ubited, he ordered the castra, his camp, to be moved to the Euphrates. Patria Moro. In the ancestral custom of the Persians, it's the tradition to proceed finally with the arising of the sun. And the day was now already illustrious or glowing, and the signal was given from the tabernacle of the king, of the regus, from the tent of the king, by Bukana, which is a horn, and Bartel it was given. Above the tabernacle, above the tent, from where it was able to be conspicued, to be seen by all, the image of the sun, inclusa, shut up in crystal, was fulgurating, was glowing. And moreover, this is the order of the columns which were drawn up, were talus as such.